Pisces, welcome to Yellow Card No Tarot with me. My name is Carole. Pisces, this is going to be a general reading for you for December 2025. And if you're new to my channel, I want to welcome you and I encourage you to subscribe and comment below. So December is going to be an incredibly powerful month for transformation for all of us. Today is the full moon. That's the day I'm doing your reading. And there's also going to be another new moon on December 19th as well. If you've been following anything to do with the Comet 3-Eye Atlas, that will be closest to the Earth on that day, the 19th. And then following that on the 21st is the winter solstice. So very powerful time for all of us. And it's going to be a period of deep inner healing, even though it can be really a chaotic month, but there's just definitely going to be a call for us to release what's no longer needed. And excuse me, as we go into this new year. And so I felt it really necessary to do a reading on that. What are you being asked to release, Pisces, that is no longer serving you? Not something that you want to bring along with you next year. And so it could be something, it could be someone, you could be asked to release some sort of emotions that are going on with you related to something in your life. And then we're going to look at what's coming up from your shadow that needs healing. Because when we are being asked to release something, and you're going to know what situation I'm talking about or what person I'm talking about. There's always something in our shadow that's coming up for healing that's related to that. And so it's very important to know that, because it can tell us a lot of times, what was sort of the original time in your life, without getting too specific, where this sort of thing happened for you and it's replaying in your life right now with the situation that you're in, being asked to release it. And then we're going to ask for some guidance from the tarot for this particular situation. So before I came on, I pulled 2 oracle cards for you, and one of them came from the Return of Spirit, and the other one came from the Secrets of the Ancestors. And I always find them amazing. I get excited when I pull them because there's always a relation between them, right? So you started off with the card of Innocence, and a beautiful card for you. And so I was quite shocked at the first line of the description for this, because I hadn't picked this one before, and so I wasn't familiar with it. And it talks about letting go of the baggage that you have of that's all around your guilt and your shame. And shame and guilt, they're not emotions. I always talk about shame as being the big emotion here. And both of those are very similar, but one brings in the other one, and it just creates this cycle of shame and guilt that we can spin around in. We're not born with shame. Shame is something that was given to us when we were younger. And so this card is called Innocence because it wants you to get back to a place, where you see yourself as that younger child, who you were before the shame was given to you. And so it's a time now that you're being asked to release this heavy guilt and shame that's sitting with you, because the universe doesn't see you as this adult that's, with this baggage behind you. The universe sees you as this child still, this beautiful, perfect child. And so it really is, they really want you to release it because it's hindering, it's preventing you from moving forward. And then the next card you got was the Trickster, which kind of explains what's going on with you. And the Trickster, it says ego in excess right at the bottom here. So I almost looked at this as the Devil card, right? Can you see the Devil, how these individuals are chained? This is actually, I think it's a god. That's a spider god. And he's casting these webs on these people. He's keeping them stuck. And so I'm wondering, what areas in your life are you making very unhealthy choices? And sometimes, you know, we can be stuck in things like we can have attachments to unhealthy people. We can have attachments to temptations or materialism, addictions. You know, there's so many addictions out there that we can be attached to. And so what's really in charge here is the ego. So your ego is very much in charge, you know, because the ego doesn't want you to get in touch with these emotions of shame and guilt, because the ego is petrified, absolutely petrified of emotions. But there's some real big emotions like guilt and shame, and oftentimes grief can come in there as well, that this particular ego self will go, don't you dare go near those emotions. It's petrified. It learned at a very young age. It knows that you learned at a very young age that you weren't allowed to touch these emotions. Shame is too big of an emotion for you to touch. And so the ego self will keep us up in our head. And because there's no emotions up here, right? So it won't allow you to go into your body and to feel that shitty emotion of shame. And so what it does is it can use things like unhealthy attachments to cover up our pain, right? To numb us out of our pain if it's addictions. And so let's have a look at, I'm going to use the Ehrenberg Tarot, and I'm going to ask, let's have a look at what you're being asked to release that's no longer serving you this month, Pisces. I'm just going to ask one card here. And so you have the Hangman, Major Arcana card for you. What's coming up from your shadow that needs healing, that's related to the situation that you're in. Sideways position is the Four of Wands right here, sitting in your shadow. What guidance does the tarot have for you in this situation? You have the Three of Pentacles in reverse. And we'll ask for, we're going to use the Radiant Rider Waite, and I'm going to ask for a couple clarifiers for this Hangman over here. So a couple cards for that. Whoa, that one, ooh, those two wanted to sneak out as well. So you had the Chariot card in reverse, and you had the Emperor. Those are two powerful, I think I'm going to, I'm going to keep them right here and see if they'll give me some more information. But I really think I have enough. But it's like they kind of wanted to come out, so we'll keep them there. Can I have a couple cards for the Four of Wands? And only because I'll keep them, because this deck is not one that usually spits out a lot of cards for me. It's pretty good at spitting out one at a time. So I'm going to say that it definitely wanted to have those for you. So you have the Empress sideways that came out right after the Four of Wands, and the Four of Swords. Both of those cards are in your shadow. Three of Pentacles, couple cards for that. There's one and one more. All right, so Seven of Wands and the Two of Wands. So, seeing a few wand cards here. Four, you got the two, you got the seven, you got the four. Yeah, and then some real big energies right here for what you're being asked to release. So you have a lot of help around you with these big energies that are coming out right here. So let's start off with the Hangman as something that you're being asked to release. I mean, look at this individual. I mean, it's interesting. I love this deck because it takes a snapshot of the Rider Waite. And this is the Hangman, and we all know that the Hangman is someone that's hanging upside down and doesn't look like they're suffering much, right? And it's interesting that they took the 2 feet, and it almost looks like this individual is tied up. You know, it reminds me of the Eight of the Eight of Swords, where you're all tied up. And so maybe you're feeling that way. And the universe is saying, okay, it's time now. We want to show you, you need to look at this in a different perspective. I think you're feeling like, well, if we go back to the shame and the guilt that you're feeling, that you're needing to release, like it's all your fault. And so I'm wondering if you're really sitting here with a lot of blame. You know, that's what shame is putting the blame on you. And it's stuff, it's shit that people dumped on you and told you that it was all your fault when it wasn't your fault, but you're continuing to carry this around. And so the universe is saying, you know, that's a major arcana card. It's like, it's time for you to get a different perspective here on life, because you've been walking around for a long time with that shame. We can carry so much shame in our system. I know I do. And I have released a lot of it, but just today there was some more that I'm being asked to look at during December. And it's just been coming off the last 2 days of some more shame around bullying, actually, that an incident where I was just caught up in it again. And so I've been having to look at that again in my life. And oftentimes we can spiral through the same thing. Like, I've looked at the bullying theme, for example, in my life before with me, and that's all about shame. And then it's coming up again, but I know that it's coming up because I need to go a little bit deeper. And so this could be, you know, you having to go a little bit deeper into your shame, and really take a look at, you know, what are you carrying around that's preventing growth for you? I see that, you know, you end with, I think this was actually the last card, was the 2 of Wands. I remember you ending on that note. And, you know, that talks about movement. And I talked about there's wands in this. I was feeling some wand energy here. And wand talks about a creative purpose for you. So I'm feeling there's like this, the universe is wanting to turn you and look, Pisces, there's a different perspective over here, and it wants you to look this way, right? And so the next card after the Hangman, you know, like, again, like I said, it's wanting you to see get a different perspective. You have the Chariot card and the Emperor, two major arcana cards. And so what are you being asked to release? Well, I think you need, this Chariot card talks about this individual in an upright position that has been trying to get these sphinxes to move for so long, but they've turned to cement. They're not even looking at the same direction. So it's been using its mind, this charioteer, to try to get these sphinxes to move for so long. And it comes to a point where he's hitting a wall, and it's like, you can't control this with your mind anymore. You've been trying for so long. And that's why it's in reverse, because I think there's like this huge resistance on your part to realize that you can't control this anymore. This is not for you to control. This shame and this guilt that you've been carrying around for so long, that's preventing you from going in this new direction, is not for you to carry around anymore. And in fact, it's something that has to come. You have to heal this by going inwards. This card, Chariot card, talks about movement, but it doesn't talk about physical movement. It talks about inner movement. There's a huge resistance on your part to go inwards and start to feel this shame and this guilt that you have been carrying around for so long. And I know that this Emperor sits right behind it, and he's a real controlling figure. I can see this as I almost feel like there's probably a real controlling figure that you've had when you were younger. And I think I see that with the 4 of Wands, and right away I saw that. When I saw the 4 of Wands, it's like, I think you've been really controlled when you were younger. You came from a controlling environment. So this card comes up, this Emperor card comes up, because it's like, you know, what sort of things have you been told when you were younger that you continue to believe? And this Emperor card is about that. Like, talks about the rules of society. Like, what have you been taught around this shame and this guilt, and why you have to carry this around? You know, what are the messages that you're telling yourself in your head? It's your fault. You're the one to blame. What are these things that you've been told when you were younger, and you continue to believe them? And these are the cards that I, you know, didn't really want to add on, but there's some more information here. And here's the three of these, this Five of Cups card. It really talks about an individual that is really shrouded, has this black cloak, and can't see the silver lining. You see that bridge that's there in the background? That's the silver lining. Can't see that because it's focusing on these 3 cups. And so your perspective has been for so long focused on these 3 cups that have spilt, and that's left you in a real place of loneliness, in a real place of depression. Like I'm seeing you going in and out of depression, right? And these emotions, you see how that water's flowing right there? Those are your emotions. They're meant to flow. But I can see that you've been stuck too long in this guilt and this shame and this depression and this hopelessness, feeling like this is all your fault when it never was your fault, but you're continuing to carry it, right? And especially if you're sitting in addictions, and you're numbing this pain of something that was not your fault. And I think that's what I might call this, is this wasn't your fault. And then you have the Page of Swords here that comes out, and it's sideways. And so here's this inner child. My pages are inner children. They're the ones that will hold your pain. They hold your memories. They hold your trauma. And they're the ones that tug at our pant leg and say, listen, I need you to listen to me. I've been holding this pain for so long. And this particular young part of us holds your truth, holds your sword. It wants you to take this sword now and cut through all this bullshit that you've been telling yourself. This particular inner child needs healing. It wants you to cry. It wants you to feel that shame and that guilt that you felt, that it felt when it was younger, that was given to it. And it's sitting right here because it holds your truth. If you can get through, sit with, journal from all of this blame and the shame that you've been holding for so long, the truth right here is sitting here to set you free. And I talked about it talks about the Hanged Man. It's powerful that this inner child of yours holds your truth. And you start off with this Hanged Man of the universe saying, we want you to look at, get a different perspective, turn a different way. Well, the answer to that is your inner child that's sitting there. It's holding your truth, and it knows it's not this guilt and this shame that you've been holding for so long. I'm sorry if I repeat that so much about the guilt and the shame, but it's so important. Every single one of us on this planet Earth holds shame. There's not one person that doesn't have shame. And if we could only get in touch and know that and start to heal our shame, it's so powerful, so powerful. And so what's coming up from your shadow around this that needs healing? Well, you start off with the Four of Wands. And that's the card that I knew that told me about, it's sideways here. And I'm going to say when you were younger that I'm sure there's a part of you that wanted to be free, that wanted to be free to be you. And you know, here it is right here, this little part of you that needs healing. But this card to me, because when it's in your shadow, I mean, when it's not in your shadow, it talks about a card of being free and having this plan and being able to finally be free and be able, and that's why it's called oftentimes like a victory card here. There's a celebration. But when it's in your shadow, to me it says, well, this is a card that very much controls you. And because normally it talks about these 4 wands that are taken, and they're standing there as 2 pillars in the Rider-Waite card. And I look at that as, you know, wands are not meant to be planted. They're meant to go free. But because it's in your shadow, you didn't have the freedom. That was taken away from you when you were younger. You weren't allowed to be free. And in fact, I'm going to say that you were very much shamed. And that when we are shamed, that's what our caretakers, sometimes people have abusers like myself. I talk about my abusers. Well, they will shame us, and that's how they'll control us, right? So I'm going to say that shame was used to control you. And you have the Empress here that comes sideways here. You weren't allowed to use your emotions. You weren't allowed to show your emotions. I'm going to say you were shamed for having emotions. You were shamed for showing your anger. You were shamed for crying too much. So you learned at a very young age that you weren't free to express your emotions or use your emotions. Instead, you were shamed for it. And the Four of Swords here comes out as the last card in your shadow. And the Four of Swords talks about a card of stillness, of being able to have time out for ourselves and get to know ourselves. But it's in your shadow. So this talks to me about, I don't think you got to know yourself. I don't think you got to know who you really were. And you also came from a very chaotic environment. And you came from a very controlling environment. And that's why your little page here wants to tell you who you are. Underneath all that shame and that guilt and that controlling, there's a lot of emotions of grief. Because you feel like you don't matter when you're controlled. You feel like you don't matter when you're not allowed to show your emotions. And that's where that hopelessness is, this Five of Cups, where you have all this shame. The Five of Cups is a card of shame, of feeling hopeless, of feeling like you don't matter. And so what guidance does the Tarot have for you in relation to this situation? Well, you have the Three of Pentacles here. And the Three of Pentacles, it's in reverse. And the Three of Pentacles talks to me because this is a healing channel. So it talks to me about getting some support, whether it's therapy, whether it's can be some sort of body work therapy, which I've had that a lot in my life. It also says to me, especially because this is about shame and guilt, the one way that we can release our shame is to tell somebody about how we feel about ourselves. And because if we feel like shit, and if we feel like we don't matter, that's what was told to us. That's what you were made to believe when you were younger. And so that's the stuff that you're holding. I don't matter, and I don't love myself. And that's the stuff that you need to tell people. You need to tell people what happened to you. You need to tell people how you were shamed, because that gets it out. Otherwise, we hold it in, and it becomes this heavy secret that we're holding. You have the Seven of Wands here next, and this card talks about, probably my favorite card in the deck. It talks about this individual that's going in alone. And when you start talking about what happened to you when you were younger, when you start talking about the things that you were shamed for that weren't your fault, and maybe you have addictions now that are covering up your pain, you're asked to go it alone, and you're going to feel very alone. It's a lonely journey, and you're going to have these people below you that are going to be saying, who are you? Get off your pedestal. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are, saying all these things? That happened to me when I had my family come out and say, who do you think you are, for saying you were abused? I had that come out. And so maybe that might happen to you. But it's also, to me, a real strength card. It's this individual right here, you can't see it as much in this card, but I want you to take a close look at their shoes. Normally they're two different colors, and one's a higher shoe and the other one's lower, one's a boot and the other one's a shoe. And it represents that this person is a non-conformist, Maybe you're one of those people that felt like you are very different than other people. Maybe you were the black sheep of the family, because you were the one that was meant to speak out and to go out alone and to use your voice. And Two of Wands is the last card for you. There's a new direction here for you, and I think you probably feel it. The Two of Wands is a card about feeling this nudge of a new direction. And when you can work through all of this, when you can work through that shame that was never yours in the first place. And there's a lot of grief with that as well. And when you can sit with it, take some quiet time out for yourself and tell people about it. There's going to be a new direction that's going to come your way. It could be a small step for you. It could be a big change, whatever it is. There's like a promise of something here for you. And so I'm going to leave you with a playlist that I've done on shame on my other channel called Carole Cares, where I have a lot of my videos on there, and there's some videos on there that will help you with, journaling from your shame and what shame is. We don't talk about shame too much because it's one of those emotions that feels really, really shitty. And so we because it's so shameful, we just push it away. We don't want to talk about it. So Pisces, I want you to have compassion for yourself for what you're working through right now. This is a very difficult journey, but it's the most important one. So take care, and I'll talk soon. Bye.